wanted to add about the FISA court. The FISA court is appointed by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. It doesn't go through any Senate review, as far as I know. And they should, right? There should be a process there for validating that position. They do that for other federal judges. Why not the FISA court? They are selected from federal judges who are in different courts. They call them, I mean, every time they talk about them, they talk about judges, they're Article 3 judges. But what they're sitting on is a court that's an Article 2 court. It's not an Article 3 court. There's no, Article 3 courts require opposing positions and arguments going back and forth, and the judge adjudicates with using the law and the Constitution between the arguments. That's an Article 3 court. The Article 2 court is on the 6th floor of the Department of Justice, and here's the government side and no other side. And there's no argument. All they have to do, they can't. Even Judge Reggie Walton said when he left the court after Snowden's exposure of the general warrant, came out and said, well, we don't have any real way of really following and verifying what the NSA or any intelligence community agencies tell us. And it's exactly right. He has zero capability to do that. That's why I was advocating that hackers should be hired to represent the Congress and the courts, Article 3 courts, not this makeshift Article 2 court, and be authorized and cleared to go into any government agency anywhere and look at every database they've got and everything they've got in that database and verify every process that any of them are using and look at what all the analysts have as tools to work with on their desks and see how they're operating and what all data they're looking at so that it can verify what's really going on. There's no verification process now. Trust but verify, the only thing they can do is trust. The other thing I wanted to say was I had my own suggestion as to how to fix this problem. The shortest version was 3 regiments of samurai one night. Okay? The other version said, let's have an Article 5 states constitutional convention, and where we change the entire rules for electing people to go to Washington, and we randomly pick from the phone book. We won't do any worse, okay? We can't do any worse. Right? I mean, plus you get a bunch of people who are honest, most of them anyway, so that's certainly different. And you get a bunch of people who want to balance a budget because they have to at home, right? So they'll have an idea how to balance it. We don't have that now, right? And then you'll get a bunch of people who want to work to solve a problem, most of them. So you'll get a Congress and a Senate and a that will really want to do something for the people. And then no lobbyists could lobby them because they're not going to be there next time. 2 years later, they're gone. The new group's in. That's true. That's true. Civil service, right? That's exactly what it was intended to be. You know, public service by the citizens of the country.
There was a couple more questions, just totally, possibly different. What do you think about Jim Comey, Robert Mueller, and the 2004 resignation from the FBI? And that's to any panelist.
I know about that. I know enough about it. I know about that.
You do?
Yeah.
This is referring to the hospital visit to Ashcroft while he's in the hospital. That was done because of the Stellar Wind program. And that's because they were collecting not just metadata, but content, and they were afraid that the aspect of email content was going to be a basis for indicting Ashcroft as the first sitting or standing, whatever you want to look at it. At that time, he was laying down in the hospital, Attorney General to be indicted. So that's what that was all about. I believe that they all should still be indicted for what they've done. Because it didn't change the fact that they were violating the 4th Amendment or the 1st, 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments in secret. And Mueller said that in his interview with Bart Gellman in March of 2011 when he thought he was going to be out of the FBI directorship. And when he talked to him, Bart, he said, we've been using the program Stellar Wind since 2001. So it tells you he's been looking into all the personal email and phone calls of everybody in the United States. And had access to the rest of the world too, so that was that one.
Anybody else? Okay. And then we have a question about the Dodd-Frank Act. It requires banks to collect, storage, and transmit data to the Federal Reserve. Does the Federal Reserve share data with the NSA?
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, the banks do. They're part
Yeah.
of they're part of the 78.
People wanted that clarified. I just had another question about, we have a lot of people asking questions, but I don't think a lot of people know how to even get involved. Where does that start? How did you worked within the government? You worked within the government. How did you get involved? How do other people get involved?
Well, I can only.
Well, I got involved directly when they started to try to indict me. That was pretty straightforward. So it was clear for me I had to fight this. I mean, when they did that, that was war. Okay, as far as I was concerned, that was war. They were declaring war on me with no foundation whatsoever. So I thought I should reciprocate. So I'm out here telling you, exposing their underwear and making sure they know that everybody knows what they're really doing in spite of what they're saying, because they use a lot of sophistic techniques to confuse and to delude people into thinking something other than what they're really doing. You know, it's like, pay attention, don't pay any attention to the man behind the curtain from the Wizard of Oz, right? So that's really what they're doing. They're doing this all behind the curtain in secret. So I'm getting involved directly with the people in Congress, talking to staffers as well as members of Congress. I was supposed to have a meeting with Rand Paul a few months ago, but we couldn't get our schedules worked out. So hopefully we'll do it again sometime. And in the meantime, I've been talking to people like Judge Napolitano and trying to educate the judge in terms of what this really means technically, so that NSA and CIA and all these people can't come down there and bamboozle them and trick them into thinking they're really doing something right when they're really setting them up, you know. So, and he's in turn talking to other judges like his friend Scalia, Judge Scalia. So I'm trying to get knowledge into the judicial so that they can, in fact, recognize when they're being bamboozled. They can't do that now. I mean, NSA goes before the FISA court judge and says, this happened, this happened, this happened. How can he challenge that? He can't do that. They can't challenge any basic information that NSA throws at them. And yet they know they've had a long-term problem, because even back in August of 2002, the FISA court, I don't know how they did it, but they found out that they were misled by the FBI, lied to by the FBI, to get at least 75 warrants. Well, they've been doing that all along. That's not new. So here's this court that's basically worthless, and they should be forced to go into an Article 3 court where they have to argue out in the open, where they can be contested by somebody else, not sit behind in a secret vault doing stuff, which is what they're doing with that court. So I think we should abolish it or indict everybody in those courts. I think they're a real shame. They brought shame upon the judicial process of the United States.
Thank you.
So the question is how to get involved?
Yeah.
So just quickly on myself, nothing exceptional about myself. I wasn't even, to my credit, I was not a lawyer until my 40s. Before that, I'd been on active duty for a while as an Army reservist, as a computer technician, worked in construction before that, went to law school in my 40s and got commissioned as a JAG attorney. I ended up retiring as a regular Army officer, but becoming a JAG attorney, just about the time the Kosovo War was starting, I started reading antiwar.com, and that'd be one of the things I'd suggest, like Bill just said, you need to inform people, and to have informed people, you have to have information. Antiwar.com was one of the best sites I found way back then, and still continues today, bringing very good news on what is actually taking place. Consortium News is another one. I get published on them once in a while, on both of them. The Ron Paul Institute. I'm not a libertarian, been a Republican, been a Democrat. I've shed all that partisanship, because that's not the problem. The problem is the partisanship, because it covers up the fact that the government is out of control. It's not the parties. So we need to realize that it's the government, not the parties, that we need to be pointing fingers at. So anyway, when 9/11 come along, I was on active duty as a JAG attorney out of Fort Snelling, and it was really apparent that we were going to go way overboard on this, and so anyway, I just kept tracking things. We picked up all the people, and immediately it was apparent that the Bush administration, and I might have even called myself Republican yet, or at least leaned that way at that time. After the Bush administration, never again. But it was clear that they had an entirely different agenda. We started getting hints of the legal opinions being written, and the whole idea of the unitary executive theory, which is plain, it's just another word for dictatorship. Make no mistake about it. It's dictatorship. We have Republican Federalist Society, which I once belonged to, lawyers who have proposed that we need to be reading the works of Carl Schmitt, the Nazi legal jurist, for this state of emergency that we're in. In other words, we need to adopt practices of the fascists for today, which I hope is readily apparent is totally fallacious and sinister. So I saw what was coming out of the Bush administration. They picked up all these people in Afghanistan. Rumsfeld saying they were the worst of the worst. They had almost 900 people at one time, and having been paying attention to what goes on, low-intensity conflict for a number of years, I knew better than what they were saying about this. So anyway, I hung on as a JAG attorney, and when the chance came, I volunteered to go and be a defense attorney in the military commissions. And there I really had my eyes open on both the incompetence of the CIA, who really runs Guantanamo, the incompetence of the military, the covering up of their own incompetence, and on and on and on. But in the course of that, I had to do a lot of research on what the United States is now going back to claiming is our domestic common law war. And that's a civil war case between the one time during our history, the entire northern states, not the South, but the northern states were under martial law. And anybody saying even something embarrassing about the Army was put under military arrest and put in front of military commissions, where somebody's shouting out that Lincoln's an incompetent would get you in front of a military commission. That's how bad it was. The Supreme Court got rid of that precedent immediately after the Civil War, and nobody brought it up again until Dick Cheney and John Yoo and David Addington decided, hey, this worked good. It worked once during the Civil War. We can impose this system of repression on the United States again, using this as precedent. And that's still what the United States is arguing in Guantanamo. This is our domestic common law war. Well, you got to put all these things together in a mosaic to really see where it's going. So then at the same time, we have the 2012 National Defense Authorization Act providing that people who are suspected of terrorism can be put in will be put in military detention pending disposition under the law of war. So you ask, which law of war? Well, it's our domestic common law of war. So right back in the Civil War, repression that is liable to be pulled up any time, just depending upon how much they think they can get by with. And immediately then, you have people, dissidents, who are being put into military detention on the grounds that they're suspected of aiding the terrorists, not even being terrorists, and we're in a system of police state. And that's all been created now, and it's just a matter of when is the other shoe going to drop.
So the question is, what can you do? When you're going up against a giant monster like the NSA and state surveillance, the thing you have to keep in mind, sorry, this is Mike. The thing you have to keep in mind is that the reason these programs are so effective is because we've made it so cheap to actually implement them. What I mean by this is we're all carrying around cell phones. Those cell phones are connected to a handful of large carriers. Those cell phones also don't do anything to protect our communications. Our text messages, our phone calls, they all go to clear text that AT&T, Verizon, Sprint can see, intercept, and give to the NSA. What you need to do if you want to try and stop or slow down the system is you need to raise the cost of doing it. And that comes from all of you having to start using secure tools for communications. Now, I won't get into a whole lot of detail here. I will say that I am with a group called Crypto Party MN. We are going to be having an event on part of B-Side Security Conference, June 13th and 14th at the Target Common Plaza. If you would like to learn about secure communication tools that raise the cost of doing state surveillance like this, feel free to show up. It's free of cost, and we will take all the time you need to teach you how to use some of these tools.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
Just go to bsidesmsp.org. That'll have the event information.
I wanted to add something to what one of the subjects that Todd brought up there. That was the NDA, National Defense Authorization Act. The section he was addressing there was Section 1021 that authorized the president to declare somebody a terrorist threat, to have the military take them off the street and incarcerate them indefinitely with no due process. That is Special Order 48. It says almost exactly the same. Special Order 48 was issued by the Nazis in 1933 after the Reichstag fire, and that's how they got rid of all of their opponents. The communists and everybody else, off to the gulag or off to the concentration camps. Right? That's exact. It says exactly the same thing. All you have to do is Google it and read it on the web.
Thank you very much. I am going to turn this over to Tony Stiles again.
Maybe.
He has some additional comments to make. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, I hope we've had a good time here, and that's, by that I mean informative and great. In my experience being in radio, I usually come up with a good anecdote at this point, but I'm not going to because I'm not on radio. So I'm just going to hand it over to my friend Nick over here. And give him a good round of applause. This guy has done a great job in pretty much everything he's ever done. Microphone doesn't stretch that far, Nick.
I don't need that.
All right, go for
I
it.
can handle it. Can you hear me? Yeah. All right, perfect. Thank you very much, panel. Thank you, Mr. Benny, for showing up. I think this has been great. Has it been fun?
Yes.
Thank you, Tony. Thanks especially to Heather for putting all the questions together. Let's give Heather a hand. And give yourself a hand for showing up and coming up with wonderful questions and participating. You know, I always like to give the last word, but I can't because David Arvidsson is going to come and he's going to get the last word.
This is it.
So before you give the last word, can I say one last thing I wanted to add?
I mean, how long is it going to take?
What can you do? You know, I was very disappointed when I went to a Tea Party meeting when I came back from D.C. 2 years ago, and one of the first things said was some young woman got up and said, turn off the TV and take your kids out to movies. Go take them and see Zero Dark 30, which was the documentary, you could say, of the CIA torturing human beings. So the one thing you can do is right off the bat is begin calling your Congress members, anybody else who's in power, and demand accountability for the recognized war crimes committed by the CIA and anyone else involved in the torture, and put aside any biases you might have that, well, they're terrorists, they deserved it, because it's totally false, and realize that we have CIA people who we have evidence now have committed war crimes, and if there is accountability for that, there'll never be any other kind of accountability. So that's a place to begin right now, demand accountability for the war crimes committed by our U.S. government.
All right. David Arvidsson.
Oh, gee, well, apparently we're not done.
Oh, wait, not yet, not David
I just had one thing to add to what Todd was talking about there. In the case against John Kiriakou, if you don't know John, he was ex-CIA, he exposed one of the names of the torturer. The CIA went after him and he spent 32 months in jail. So he was one who exposed the torture, and that they gave retroactive immunity to all the people who did the torture. What kind of country is that?
All right, very good. Now, are we ready?
We're ready.
If not for David, we wouldn't be here tonight. Thank you, David.
I don't know if that's true or not. I just wanted to say, if you are not currently in some sort of a liberty group, I would encourage all of you to join one. There are plenty around. Liberty-leaning groups are a wonderful place to explore ideas, concepts, and brainstorm outcomes. Some groups, like those led by my friend Nick, have been around and doing just that for many years. Some others are relatively new. Doesn't matter. A group can help in getting you comfortable thinking a concept all the way through. Then you can share your thoughts with friends, families, whomever you are comfortable with. It is how liberty will grow. Liberty people want you to make your own decisions. We all fail, we all succeed, but as a group we can stand more firmly for that ingrained human need, want, and desire we all have to be masters of one's own self. After all, who cares more about the decisions that you make than you do? Liberty ideas won't always win, and the arguments we present won't always be popular, but when we lose as a group, we can seek to be compensated more thoroughly. Liberty people have been called everything from potheads and isolationists to anarchists and fools. I call Liberty people my friends. Thank you, everybody, for being here this evening.
Okay, let's eat and drink.
Eat and drink.